Hello, thank you for joining me again for our fifth teaching now on this series of messages on premarital counseling for Christian couples. Today we are going to be on session number 5, and we're going to talk about money. This is the first of 6 main teachings about marriage. These are the core components to our premarital counseling here at our church. These are the 6 areas that you're going to have to deal with day by day, week by week, month by month, and year by year in your marriage. And we're going to start out talking about money. And there's no doubt about it that money can make or break your marriage. This issue of money has probably wrecked more marriages than any other. In study after study, psychological studies, university studies, counseling studies, in study after study, how a couple handles the finances will determine the success and the failure of that marriage. Money can and should be a blessing to your marriage, should not be a curse. So let's talk about money. That's the title for tonight's teaching. The Christian financial counselor Dave Ramsey, in his book on A Complete Guide to Money, makes this simple statement. He says, if you want to make your money work for you, then you're going to have to know how money works. It's a simple statement, it's a catchy statement, but it's such a relevant statement to what we want to say today. We need to know how money works. A lot of people don't know how money works. They think we just have to earn a lot of money so we can spend a lot of money. And that's not the end and the beginning of money. We have to know how money works. So I want to start out giving you some foundation stones and then some basic thoughts on money, and then we're going to go right into some very particular areas of how to handle money in your marriage. So let me give you 3 foundation stones. We've taught on this a lot in our church here. You can go to our website, Teacher of the Bible, and get these different teachings that we have. But I want to give you 3 foundation stones to money. The first one, and the most important of all the foundation stones regarding money, is this: God owns everything. God owns everything. Everything that you own, God owns. Everything that I own belongs to God. Psalm 24, verse 1 sums it all up in one statement. It says, the earth is the Lord's and all of its fullness, the world and those who dwell therein. So the earth belongs to the Lord and everything that's in it. Moses told Pharaoh, for all the earth belongs to the Lord. God told the Israelites, for all the earth belongs to me. The psalmist said, the heavens are yours. The earth also is yours. The world and all of its fullness, because you have founded them. So the earth, the heavens, the world, and all their fullness, they all belong to God. The Lord spoke through the prophet Haggai and declared, all the silver and all the gold are mine. God said through Asaph in that famous Psalm 50, God said, if I have need of a bull from your stall or of goats from your pens, I wouldn't ask you, he says, for every animal of the forest is mine and the cattle on 1,000 hills. He says, I know, or I own every bird in the mountains, and the creatures of the field are mine. He says, if I were hungry, I would not tell you, for the world is mine and all that is in it. So everything that's in the world belongs to God. All the animals, all the creatures, all the birds, all the cattle, everything belongs to the Lord. God told Job when he had that famous encounter with him at the end of the book of Job, God said, who has given to me that I should repay him? whatever is under the whole heaven is mine. Another translation says, I owe no one anything. Everything under heaven is mine. Paul, in that powerful statement that he made in the book of Romans, said, who has ever given him anything so that he has to pay it back? For everything comes from him. Everything exists by his power and is intended for his glory. Amen. So God doesn't owe anything to anybody because everything belongs to God. When the people began to give so generously and willingly in the building of the temple, or preparation to build the temple, King David made these statements. He says, everything we have comes from you, and we give you only what you have already given to us. It all came from you, and it all belongs to you. Did you hear what David said there? He says, it all came from you, and it all belongs to you. So amazingly, we can make this simple statement, God owns whatever you own. The second thing that's a fundamental truth about finances is you own nothing. Sometimes it's a very humbling statement to hear, but the Bible openly declares that we literally own nothing. It all belongs to God. That's why. Paul told Timothy, for we brought nothing into this world, and it is certain that we can carry nothing out. Solomon said in Ecclesiastes, naked a man comes from his mother's womb, and as he comes, so he departs. He takes nothing from his labor that he can carry in his hand. As a man comes, so he departs, right? Whenever you go to a funeral, the person in the casket doesn't take anything out of this world. He brought nothing in and is going to take nothing out, which tells us openly that we own nothing, and nothing belongs to us. So in other words, your beginning and your ending are the same. You came with nothing and you leave with nothing because it all belongs to God. When Job lost his children, his houses, and all of his possessions, he stated this very simple truth in the same way as we've been saying. He says, I came naked from my mother's womb, and I will be stripped of everything when I die. The Lord gave me everything I had, and the Lord has taken it away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. So he came in naked, and he leaves naked. The psalmist said, don't be upset when a man becomes rich, when his wealth grows even greater. He cannot take it with him when he dies. His wealth will not go with him to the grave. No matter what we do, no matter how we try to put it in something, money or a ring or gold or whatever inside of a coffin, that person cannot take it with him. Just the same way that he came in is the way he leaves. And so the third thing then, the third fundamental truth is we are stewards of what belongs to God. So God has entrusted unto us things. He has trusted unto us cars and possessions and what we own of our house and so on. He has entrusted those things to us, but they all belong to Him. None of it belongs to us. And that has real profound implications for how you handle money. You are dealing with God's money. The money that you have, the possessions that you own, they all belong to God. If it's God's money, then you have to be very careful how you use it. So if God owns everything, and He does, and we own nothing, and that's true, then whatever we have belongs to God, and we are merely stewards of what belongs to Him. And we will give an account to the Lord of how we've handled our money. So, for example, if somebody needs a ride to church, and you have your car, which you called your car, it's God's car, and God wants you to give somebody a ride to church, then you shouldn't be upset about that because it's God's car. And if God wants to use you to go get a person to bring them to a church service, then you're just using His car to do His will. If somebody needs $100, a ministry needs $100 to go help the homeless, then you can give that money. If the Lord puts it on your heart to give, you can give that money because it doesn't belong to you. It belongs to God. And if God needs to use that money for the outreach to the homeless, then it's his money being used for his purposes. And that's why the Bible can call those who don't tithe robbers, because it's his money and they're trying to keep it all for themselves. They won't tithe, they won't give to the Lord, so the Lord calls them robbers. The other day, my son, I asked him if I could use the car that he drives in. It actually belongs to me. It's in my name, and I own that car, but he drives it. He drives it to work. He drives it to school. He drives it to church. He drives it to the store. And so I asked him, do you mind if we use your car? That's why I said it to him, your car, to bring a ladder over here to the church. And he says, sure. So we loaded a ladder into his vehicle, and we brought it over here to the church. But what if he would have said, no, I don't want, you can't use my car. But I'm the owner. I own that car. It's registered in my name. He can't tell me that because it's my car. He is using my car. So if I ask him about it, then he needs to let me use it because it doesn't belong to him. It belongs to me. It's the same way with the Lord. If he wants to use your car, your money, your possessions, your house, whatever you own, if he wants to use that to be a blessing to somebody else, then you have to acknowledge that it doesn't belong to you. You're just a steward of it. You're just the taxi driver. You're just the person that God has given the money to so you can be a blessing to others. He's giving you the money so you can pay your bills, so you can provide for your family, so you can bless other people. So nothing belongs to us. Everything belongs to God. And that's why in those parables of the talents and those parables of the minas, you remember when God gave his money, his treasures, his talents to those people? Remember, they went out and multiplied what they had and came back and gave back to the owner of the servants, his money. They said that was his money. And even the Lord said one time, he goes, you should have put my money in the bank with interest so you could bring back my money with some interest on top of it. So it all belongs to the Lord. So now let me ask or make some very important basic thoughts, and then we're going to get into some particular areas that you should be concerned about regarding finances in your marriage. There is a statement regarding a house divided cannot stand. And a lot of people, even if you go online on the internet, a lot of people attribute that statement to Abraham Lincoln. And right before the Civil War, he was talking about the nation, the United States at that time. He says a house divided cannot stand because basically half of the states were slave states and the other half were free states. So he says we can't stand. We can't be half slave, half free. And so he quoted that statement, a house divided cannot stand. But that statement actually came from Jesus. It's in Mark chapter 3, verse 25. And he said, a house divided against itself cannot stand. Do you hear that? A house divided against itself. So the problems are not external. The problems are internal. The problems are not from the outside. The problems are from the inside. And when it comes to money, we can't blame the job. We can't blame a boss. We can't blame other people. We always have to look inside. That's what Jesus said, a house divided against itself. So you and your wife, you and your husband need to be in agreement regarding your finances. Remember, we said that in an earlier teaching. The two have become one. And you need to become one regarding what you're going to do with his finances. God has given them to you. You need to be wise stewards of what God has given. So stay in agreement with your husband. Stay in agreement with your wife. Do not move forward without prior approval of your spouse. I remember years ago talking to a Christian man, and he did something very foolish. He went out and bought a new car for his wife without telling him. He just went right out and bought and spent thousands and thousands of dollars on a new car. He brought it home and he parked it in the driveway of the house, went inside the house, said, "Come out here, honey, I want you to see this car that I bought for you." And she got so mad at what he did because he made this financial decision, literally maybe $20,000 decision without even consulting her. And you know what? She never liked that car. She walked right back into the house. And I'll tell you this about that couple. It wasn't just as a result of this purchase, but that couple 2 years later was divorced. Because you can't do things like that. You cannot make decisions on your own, unilateral decisions without consulting your wife, without consulting your husband. Always operate together, and especially on large purchases, and certainly one like a house. So agree together. Also, here's another thing that you should do as a basic. Agree together, even right now during premarital counseling, even before you get married or right after you get married, you need to agree together who is going to handle the finances in your home. It can't be two people handling it. One person really needs to handle it. One person needs to reconcile the checkbook. One person needs to input the information and keep track of the bank accounts. Will it be the wife? Will it be the husband? Who is best at handling money? Who's the most disciplined? Who has the most computer savvy to deal with money in today's high-tech world? You got to be pretty knowledgeable because almost everything now is moving to the internet. Banks, financial institutions are doing everything through computers. In my house, I handle the money in my house. My wife is not as computer savvy as I am, and she prefers that I handle it. And so I keep her informed. I make her aware of what's happening. I let her know how much we have in each account. I let her know when purchases or bills are coming up. We work together. We don't have things in secret. We don't hide things. We stay in the light. Two are always better than one when you work together. I remember one time a lady who worked in an accounting firm. She was used to working on the computer. She was used to crunching numbers. She was used to working that. Her husband didn't like working on computers. Her husband liked working outdoors. He was a construction worker. So he let her handle the finances, and that was okay as long as she let him know what was going on with the finances. So you need to decide right now, even in premarital counseling, you need to decide who is going to be handling the finances, who's going to pay the bills, who's going to be inputting all the information, reconciling the bank statements, paying the insurance bills. You need to decide that right now, as long as the other person is made aware of all the financial dealings of the home. Another thing is, you cannot serve two masters. Remember Jesus said that? You cannot serve two masters. You cannot serve God and money. You do not want money to be your master. You want money to be your slave. I'm going to say that again. You don't want money to be your master. You want money to be your slave. It must work for you. You must not work for it. If you get into a lot of debt and financial trouble, you will see what a cruel master money can be. You will live under constant stress, worry, and fear. This is a terrible bondage, I have to tell you, for so many Christian households, and that should never be. For years, working with people as a pastor, I can say confidently that there is almost no pressure in life like financial pressure. Money problems are demoralizing, they're depressing, and they are defeating. And so just as Dave Ramsey says, you need to know how money works. And that's why we're going to talk about several things here today so you can understand how money works. A lot of people don't know how money works, and they get into trouble with credit card debt. They get under a lot of indebtedness. They buy things they shouldn't be buying, and pretty soon money is on top of them. Money's the master. Money's dictating to them. The banks are dictating to them. People that have loaned them money are dictating to them, and they're under real bondage. You cannot serve God and money. You have to serve one or the other. And do not allow money to become your master, because it will make you a very real slave. And a lot of people are in that situation, including a lot of Christians. I want to also advise you to really study the book of Proverbs. It is full of the wisdom of God on handling money. Perhaps after the Gospels, where Jesus says so much, he gives a lot of teaching. Jesus, as far as I know, I've heard many people say this, and I can confirm it by just studying the Gospels, to know that Jesus said more about money than he did any other subject. And the wisdom of God in Proverbs is full of understanding and insight on how to handle money. You should read it carefully as a couple. There's 31 chapters. You can read one chapter each day of the month. Today, I looked at the calendar, and it happened to be the 18th, so I read the 18th chapter of Proverbs, and it actually had a statement or two in there about money. So read about money, learn about money, and I want to tell you that the first 10 years that I was a Christian believer, I read from the book of Proverbs every day. Every day I read one chapter. I just looked at the calendar, saw what day it was. I read one chapter. At the end of the month, 31st, I went back to chapter 1, started reading again. I did that month after month for 10 years. And I want to say to you that what I learned in those 10 years studying Proverbs like that, by just reading it each morning, all that wisdom that the Lord put into my heart, I now share with people regarding finances. I received the wisdom that Solomon had. Solomon, who wrote most of Proverbs, was the richest man who ever lived. And he had to learn how to deal with a lot of money. Remember, kings from all over the world gave him a lot of gold, a lot of silver. He had to handle and oversee 185,000 workers to build that temple. He had to oversee the supervisors. He had to handle all this money that was coming in to build that temple. So Solomon has a lot of wisdom. There's a lot of wisdom in Proverbs on how to handle money, and I would advise you to study it carefully for wisdom and insight. Proverbs says, and Solomon said this, that wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore get wisdom, and with all you're getting, get understanding. It's the principal thing, is to get wisdom. We need to have wisdom to deal with finances and all areas of our life. I want to just give this advice to you. There's two main Christian financial ministries that are available to anyone, even worldwide. One is the Financial Peace University. Just go to daveramsey.com or financialpeace.com. And the other one is Crown Ministries at crown.org. If you go to those websites, they have a lot of resources. Some of them, like with Crown, they even have devotional studies that couples can do together on handling finances. Some of them are very inexpensive. I saw one today for $20. Gives you a devotional study that you and your wife, you and your husband can go through. And you can get wisdom on how to handle finances. Now, if you're watching this video and I'm going to be marrying you and you're a part of this church, we will give you the Financial Peace University course as a wedding gift from the church when we marry you. Okay, so just be sure to remind me. We'll make sure that the secretary orders that course for you, and you can learn from that course. It has some powerful teaching. We've done the Financial Peace University courses here at our church, and it's very, very powerful. So get wisdom, get understanding. Don't be in the dark about money. You're going to need God's wisdom for handling money. I like something that Proverbs says in the 8th chapter. Solomon said this about wisdom. He said, with me, wisdom are riches and honor. Did you hear that? With wisdom are riches and honor. And he uses this phrase, enduring wealth and prosperity. It's important, you know. We want our money to last. It's a wealth that endures. Did you hear those words? Enduring wealth. Many people invest in things that don't last. It's temporary. It's like throwing money away. We don't want that. We want wealth that endures. We want to invest in things that are going to last. It has enduring wealth that brings about true godly riches, but riches also that we can use for the blessing of others. Jesus made a powerful statement in Luke 16, verses 10 through 12. And he was dealing with finances, when the whole context, because he concludes by saying, you can't serve two masters. You cannot serve God and money. He said this, if you're faithful with a little, you'll be faithful with much. If you're dishonest or unfaithful with little, you're going to be dishonest with much. There's a lot of people that want more wealth, but they can't even handle the little bit that they have. You give them a little bit of money, and they end up getting into problems with the little bit of money that they have. And Jesus also said, if you cannot handle worldly wealth, who's going to give you true spiritual riches? So I tell you something right now, the way you handle money and how you handle money says a lot about you and says a lot about your maturity in the Lord. And it shows you, if you want to see how you're conducting your life and how you're going to conduct your ministry, just look at how you handle money, because money will say a lot about you. Jesus also said, if you do not do well handling what belongs to others, who's going to give you what belongs to you? So the way you handle your money says a lot about you. If you want to see how you're going to handle your life and ministry, just look at how you're handling your finances. If you can be trusted with the natural, with money, you'll be able to be trusted with the supernatural. Listen, if you cannot even be trusted with the money you have in your pocket or in your purse, if you can't be trusted with that little bit of money, why should the Lord give you supernatural things like the gifts of the Spirit, the power of the Lord? Why should God give you those things? You can't even handle the little money that you have in your purse or in your wallet. Well, how you handle the little bit that God gives you now is going to determine how you handle bigger things later. So work hard on money matters, because your money is either going to make you or break you. Okay, so those are some foundations. Those are some basics. Now let's get into some particular areas here that we're going to call just some financial principles that you should be aware of when you get married and how you deal with your money. The first principle that I want to talk about is, if it doesn't produce, cut it off. If it doesn't produce, cut it off. Do you remember what Jesus said? He said, every tree which does not bear good fruit, he said, we cut it down. In John 15, Jesus said, every branch in me that doesn't bear fruit, he says he cuts it away. When he was talking about the fig tree and the Jewish people, he said, for 3 years I have been coming seeking fruit on this fig tree, and I have found none. He says, cut it down. Why is it using the ground? God is into fruitfulness. God is into multiplication. You read parable after parable. He's into multiplying and in fruitfulness. And if something is not fruitful, we need to cut it down, cast it away. Let me give you some examples. There's people that order magazine subscriptions and they never even read the magazines. Cut it out. People that have gym and health club memberships, they don't even go use them, and they're spending money on it. Here's a big waster. People who eat out all the time. I know people that eat out almost every day. Do you know how much money you spend when you eat out all the time? I have met people, I've known Christians who go out and eat out sometimes several meals a day. Sometimes they go once every day going out to eat. You know how expensive that is? I've met people who spend $600, $700, $800 a month going out to eat. I met a man that went to Starbucks every morning and got coffee for him and his wife, and then every afternoon when he left work, he went again and got coffee for him and his wife. He was spending around $20, $25 every day at Starbucks. You multiply that out times 30 days or 25 days, you're talking hundreds and hundreds of dollars just on coffee. That is not productive. That needs to be cut off. People who drink and smoke, those kind of things, they're just wasting their money. Why cumber the ground, like Jesus said? Cut it down. Here's one thing that I can ask you to do regarding this. Every few years, for 1 month, write every expense down. Just start on the 1st of March or the 1st of August or the 1st of November. For the next 30 days, the next 31 days, write down every expenditure you have. What did you buy? Did you buy gas? Did you buy food? Did you buy groceries? Did you buy whatever? Write down every single penny every day for a whole month. And you know what? I have done that several times. Even if I spent 50 cents to get a candy, I write it down. You will be surprised at where your money is going. And when you see that list, when you write it all down like that, you can make adjustments. You can cut things out. You can say, hey, look, we're spending so much money eating out. We're spending so much money over here on this. We're spending a lot of money over here on different things. Maybe even too much we're spending at the grocery store. But you and I need to look at our finances and say, if it's not really producing for us, we need to cut it off. That is a principle that works not only in every area of life, but especially it works in finances. Another principle is get organized. Reconcile accounts. What do I mean by this? Well, I met a young Christian couple that was here in our church, and they called me because they said they were having a lot of financial problems. And so I went over to their apartment, and I sat down with them. They were a young Christian couple. They'd been married only a few years. They had 2 small children in the home. And when I went over to their house, their apartment, and they said, we're having financial troubles, Pastor. I was wondering if you could sit down with us and talk to us about our finances. And I said, okay, let's do this. The very first thing I want you to do is I want you to go and bring me all of your bills. Bring all of your bills. We're going to lay them out right here on this kitchen table. Go get all your bills. Let's look and see how much you owe, what you're spending money on. You know what that lady did? The first thing she did was she went into the kitchen and she opened some of the drawers there in the kitchen where she had the spoons and the knives and the plates. She opened some of those drawers and she pulled some bills out of there. And then I noticed that she went into, from where I was sitting in the living room, she went into her dresser where she had her clothes, and she pulled socks out, and she put underclothes out and pants out, and she pulled bills out of there. She pulled some bills out of the closet. She pulled some bills and paperwork out of her nightstand, and she brought all these bills, and she laid them all out on the desk there, the table where we were going to be speaking, on the kitchen table. And I just looked over at them. I looked over at the wife. She was the one that was gathering everything. And I looked at the husband. And I said, you guys don't know how much you owe. You guys don't even know who you owe money to, do you? And they just stared at me and got really quiet. And I said, how much money do you owe people? They had no idea. Do you see that? They had bills, paperwork, all over the apartment. They had them in the kitchen. They had them in the closet. They had them in a nightstand. They had them in a dresser. It was all over the place. And they didn't even know who they owed. They didn't even know how much they owed. No wonder they were fearful. No wonder they were afraid. No wonder they didn't understand what was going on with their finances. One of the things I say to you is go get a file cabinet. Go get a file folder. Go get something that will allow you to get organized. Have a simple filing system for all of your taxes, your purchases, your credit card receipts, your bank statements, your insurance papers, etc. I want to tell you right now, year after year, you're going to accumulate a lot of paper, because businesses and banks and real estate agencies and even churches are going to send you a lot of paperwork, financial paperwork, tax paperwork, and you're going to have to keep some of that paperwork for your records. So be organized. Don't let it get out of control. If you have to sit down once a week and organize things, do it, but stay organized. Balance your checkbook. That's what I'm talking about here, about reconciling your accounts. Make sure you know what you owe. Make sure you know what's in your bank account, your savings account, your checking account. If you have to use some type of financial software or a spreadsheet software to keep track of everything, make sure you do that. Know what you have and know what you owe. That's very important. So I happen to use a spreadsheet. I have an Excel spreadsheet, and I write out my checks, write out all my paperwork there. I look online at my bank statements. I have track of all of our savings accounts, all of our different bank accounts, and I know what's going on with each of our different credit cards. You need to know where the money is going, and you need to be organized. There was a lady here in our church years ago that she got under a lot of financial stress. And I went over to her house, and her big problem was credit cards. And I asked her, go bring all your credit cards. She had 16 credit cards that she was using. And she was spending the credit cards. She owed tens of thousands of dollars. She was in debt to her ears. And I had to get her some scissors so she could start cutting up some of these credit cards so she could stop using them. But one of the things I saw in her, this lady, we got a single sheet of paper. We wrote down the name of the credit card. We wrote how much she owed, and we wrote what interest she was paying on each credit card because she was not able to pay off any of the credit cards. She was so far into debt. But one thing I saw about her was she had a lot of fear. She lived in constant financial fear, a terrible bondage that she had. You know why? Because she had no idea what she owed people. And she was even considering getting a large loan from the bank just to pay off all these debts. Jesus gave us the parable of the minas in Luke 19 and the parable of the talents in Matthew 25 to show us that the money belongs to God, and we're going to give an account for the money that He has given us. We must take the money He has given to us and multiply it, right? The one man received the 5 talents and he got 5 more. The one received the 2 talents and he got 2 more. The one man had the 1 mina and he multiplied it into 10 minas. And the Lord commended those servants and He says, well done, good and faithful servant. You know, the one servant that He did not commend, the one that ended up getting thrown into the fire, was the one servant that took the 1 talent and he buried it in the ground. He buried it in a napkin and he did nothing with the Lord's money. And when the Lord went to go and says, what did you do with my money? Do you hear that language? He says, what did you do with my money? It wasn't your money. What did you do with it? We want the Lord to say to us, well done, good and faithful servant, when we are done using His money. We want to be those who are diligent and faithful so that we can be given more. I remember a man asked me, he said, Pastor, will you please pray to the Lord to give me more money? And I just looked at him because I knew a little bit about his financial situation. And I said, what for? You can't even handle the little money that God is giving you right now. Why do you want more money? If you're unfaithful with the little, you're going to be unfaithful with the lot. Why do you want to have more money? You're going to get even into more problems if God gives you more money. So we need to be faithful. We need to be diligent in handling our money. Another particular area is this. We need to discipline ourselves to save money. We need to pay ourselves. One of the first things we need to do after we give to the Lord, we should pay ourselves. We should take some of the money that we're earning and save it. We should take money and save it, even if it's a little bit of money. Proverbs 13:11 is a very powerful statement. It says this, dishonest money dwindles away, but he who gathers money little by little makes it grow. I like that. He who gathers money little by little makes it grow. If you save $50 every month, $50 every week, $100 every month. You put away $100, you put away $100, you put away $100. At the end of the year, you have $1,200. That's a pretty good amount of money. You can, if an emergency comes up, if you need to buy tires for your car, if something breaks down and you need to get it fixed, you can use that money to help your situation, so you're not panicking, so you're not having to go use a credit card to charge and get into a lot of debt. You need to be wise in this way. I would set an amount each week or each month or whenever you get paid. Put it away in a savings account. Don't touch it. And don't even worry about how much interest it's making at the bank, because right now the banks don't give you hardly any money for the interest. What's important is that you save a little, and after a while it begins to grow. You're going to need money for emergency needs. You're going to need money when you have to buy a big ticket item. If your washer and dryer breaks down, that's a lot of money you're going to have to spend. And if you don't have the money right there, a lot of people just go charge it on the credit card, or they go borrow money, or they finance it, and they get into debt that way. But if you're saving money, and you're saving money when those needs come up, you are able to take care of it. So, put it away. When my wife and I took the Financial Peace University course, in that course, Dave Ramsey says you should have a separate savings account where you can save money. And he gave us a certain amount of money that we should build up to. Save up to this much money. Go do it. Go start working on it right now. So my wife and I went to a new bank, an entirely new bank. We opened up an account there, and every time I got paid, I put a little bit of money in there, put a little bit of money in there, put a little bit of money in there. After a while, my wife and I had quite a bit of money in there. And whenever we need to buy any big ticket items, we use that account. And we did that. We've been doing that for years, and we haven't had to go into debt. This local church here, our church council that we have, our financial council, and the church, the way we handle money here is that each time the financial council meets together, we set aside a little bit of money to a rainy day fund. We set a little bit aside for future projects. We set aside these things so that when the time comes for us to have an emergency or we need to buy something, we can pay it in cash and not have to borrow any money. So that's very powerful. That way you don't burden the church. You don't burden your you don't have to do fundraisers here at the church. Do you know that people here in America spend 115% of their income? Do you hear that? Americans here, people here in the United States, they spend 115% of their income. What does that tell you? We're spending more than we're earning. So we're going further and further into debt. As you know, our government right now is more than $25 trillion in debt. We're so far in debt. Our governments are in debt. People are in debt. For many people, the problem is not income. The problem is outflow. A lot of people, most people, I will say, make plenty of money to live at least a decent life. I know there's areas of poverty. I know there are people that struggle financially. But for the average Christian that's living here in our country, they make plenty of money to live a reasonable life. So it's not the income, it's the outgo. People are covetous, people are greedy, people want the latest phone, the latest technology, the latest computer, and they end up getting into debt. We make enough, but we spend too much. I'm going to say another thing at this point when we're talking about saving money. At various times during your married life, you're going to have times of abundance. You may get a promotion at work. You may get a large refund from taxes. You may get some kind of an inheritance, or maybe somebody passed away and they left you some money, or they left you some stocks, or they left you some kind of possessions. If you get a significant refund or bonus, or maybe you get financial gifts for your birthday or your anniversary, save it. Don't spend it all. Exercise self-control. Set it aside. Don't go spend the whole thing. I remember a Christian man that was here. He was going to get back $6,000 or $7,000. And before the government had even given him the money, the refund check on his money, on his taxes, he already had it all planned out of how he was going to spend it. He was going to buy this and that for his kids. He was going to go buy a new this. He was going to go buy a new kitchen, something for the kid. He had it all spent. He didn't save not one single penny. And he needed money because he wasn't making, he was just struggling financially at the time. But he already had spent every penny of that money before it even got to his hands. Do you remember what happened to Joseph in Genesis during the 7 years of plenty? Remember, he saved 20% of the grain. Later on, that grain was used to save a lot of people from starving to death. And I want to see if you, right now, where you're at right there, I wonder if you could say this statement with me. Your savings can save you. I wonder if you could say that right there, wherever you are listening to me. Your savings can save you. Say it again. Your savings can save you. Don't ever forget that. When you have money set aside, your tire blows out, your lawnmower breaks down, a washer and dryer doesn't work, you'll have money set aside that can help you so you don't have to go into debt borrowing money. This is a very common problem that we have with newlyweds. They go out in the very first few months that they're married and they spend. They go out and buy large furniture items. They put them all on the credit card. They go buy everything new. They treat themselves to expensive things. And this quickly puts a lot of them under financial burden. Don't do it that way. Pray, wait, be patient, plan, do things slowly. Trust God to provide. Begin saving now for things that will cost a lot